Nukem Forever. A game that's been in production forever. Yeah, that's one of those classic jokes we used to make out on the playground when I was 10 or so. Now that's finally been released, trust me, there's a ton of other things that you can make fun of involving Duke Nukem Forever besides the stupid title. So after 14 long years, Duke has finally decided to show his face. But just like another game that took quite a while and had much hype and anticipation with it, this game feels rushed, and it feels like it should have been in production for longer. Which is kind of ironic when you think about it, because it's been in production for 14 years, and that's longer than several great video game series out there. But I will admit, the game does start off interestingly enough. At the very beginning, you can go against a giant boss, you can draw on a whiteboard and create the Nyan Cat, you can sign a kid's autograph book, you can punch a douchebag in the face, you can take a piss in a toilet, and you can also steal a turd from a toilet and throw it against a wall. But then, things begin to change drastically, just like puberty. But the thing is, even looking back, I can't even tell when the change happens. It starts off as a lighthearted, old-school run-and-gun first-person shooter, but then, just like that, in the next area, you are in a mediocre modern first-person shooter where after a few hits, your shield will be down, and thus you must hide behind cover and suck your thumb to get your health or your ego bar back up to full strength. And I know I've been hearing several people online complaining that this is indeed an old-school first-person shooter, but does anyone remember what old-school first-person shooters were about? You didn't hide behind cover, you ran up to enemies, shot them in the face with a shotgun, talked about it at school the next day, and then you were sent to your school counselor because they thought you had issues. Alright, so you know that thing I just said a moment ago about how Duke Nukem Forever is an old-school run-and-gun first-person shooter? Well, I kind of lied. I lied in the fact that depending on when you buy Duke Nukem Forever, such as how much you pay for it, where you buy it, for what console, were you wearing a dress, were you having clean underwear that day, did you even wear any underwear, the game might be different for you. I know that sounds crazy, but get this. Whenever I play through Duke Nukem Forever, after 3 or 4 hits, I would typically die. Yet if I ran up to an enemy with a shotgun, shot them in the face 3 or 4 times, they would continue on living. While looking online at different Let's Play videos, people share my experience, but at the same time, there are other people that are able to do the complete opposite of that. See, this means a few different things. Number one, I happen to play it on a harder difficulty than I thought it was, or everyone else is playing it on easy. Number B, I suck at first-person shooters and I'm a whiny bitch, which I'm not. Number Pi, each and every Duke Nukem Forever game is made from a live human soul. Which means that everyone out there that is saying this is the best game ever apparently had a really good human soul in their game. Now if you're like me and you're unfortunate and get the possessed evil one that doesn't like you and thus you die quite often, you'll be faced with the long loading screen. I played it on the PS3. Yes, I have videos of it on the PC because I stole it from YouTube. But on my PS3, it took about a minute or more to load each time. I have heard reports from people that on their consoles, which I think was a 360, took up to 3 minutes to load. That is an unreasonable amount of time to load a game. 20 seconds? Yeah, I can live with that. But getting up into the minutes? That's unbearable. Another unbearable aspect of the game is the comedy, which I know is kind of ironic because the game is supposed to be a comedy game, but that's what it really does become. After a while, all the jokes mainly disappear and it becomes somewhat serious, especially at the middle portion of the game where, get this, all the women in the local area have been abducted, they're impregnated by the aliens, causing them to have alien babies that come out of them by causing the women to explode. The only way to make sure they don't suffer is to kill the women. Does anyone out there think that's funny? Duke Nukem Forever does because they have 2 women say they'll lose the weight because they think Duke Nukem isn't interested in them. Most of the jokes in the game come from Duke Nukem's one-liners, which he spews randomly throughout battles, but most of them really aren't all that funny in the first place, and you hear them so many different times that you really don't care about them anymore. Here's a few select ones. My balls. Your face. Good, bad. I'm the guy with the gun. If I said I would kill you last, I lied. And get this, typically he always kills the last guy whenever he says that. Oh, and then there's the valve puzzle you have to solve at the very end of the game, which Duke Nukem replies by saying, "I hate valve puzzles." Oh, that's just great writing right there. Grade A comedy, because then you have to go and do the puzzle. And the last thing to talk about in Duke Nukem Forever is the bosses. And more or less, they all come down to a very similar pattern that makes all the bosses feel all too similar. Here's the pattern. Look in the area for an RPG. It'll be there somewhere. Pick it up. Fire all the ammo at the boss. Look in the area for an ammo crate. Be careful not to get killed by the boss because they didn't take that into consideration. Get ammo from the crate. Go back to shooting at the boss. Go back to the ammo crate. Keep shooting in that pattern until eventually the boss has 0 health. But it's not over yet. You gotta run up to the boss, activate a quick time event, press a button repeatedly, and if you succeed, you may have to do it 2 or 3 more times, depending on what boss it is. Now, of course, some bosses do switch it up. There's one that's underwater and you have to find air bubbles, and there's another one in which you gotta throw a grenade behind its back to open up its shield. Besides that, they're exactly the same. So, of course, the best way to explain it is how I said so in the very beginning of this review. This is a game that feels rushed and should have been in production for longer, even though it's been in production for 14 years. Now, there's several other problems that are in this game, so let's go through them very quickly. So my recommendation is to avoid Duke Nukem Forever and go play Duke Nukem 3D instead. Or go play Painkiller because it's sort of a newish old school first person shooter. And remember to subscribe to be up to date on our next Impromptu review, which will be on Catherine, the horror action puzzle platformer game by Atlas, featuring the lead Vincent, who's a very horny guy. Get it because he has horns? Aw, I'm so funny.